Hello and welcome to the first video in the Hope That Helps series presented by NAMI San Diego's Tech Cafe. The Hope That Helps series is dedicated to the destigmatization of mental illness through education and improving the quality of and approach to mental and behavioral health services. Our focus in this video is the trauma-informed model of care. We'll introduce the model, some of the key terms of trauma-informed care, and the 6 guiding principles. According to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA, trauma is the result of an event, series of events, or set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or life-threatening, and that has lasting adverse effects on the individual's functioning and mental, physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being. While some people report experiencing one traumatic event, others may have been exposed to multiple or chronic traumatic events. An individual can experience some form of trauma at any point in their lives. Many of those who experience single or even multiple traumatic events may show few or no symptoms. However, individuals who have endured repeated, chronic, or multiple traumatic experiences are more likely to have pronounced symptoms or face negative consequences. These may include, but are not limited to, substance use disorder, mental illness, and physical health problems. Behavioral health practitioners and organizations that operate under the trauma-informed model of care must recognize the prevalence and pervasive impact of trauma on the lives of the people they serve. Services developed under this model of care are called trauma responsive. According to SAMHSA, trauma-informed care is a strengths-based service delivery approach grounded in the understanding of and responsiveness to the impact of trauma. Trauma-responsive services encompass aspects of physical, psychological, and emotional safety for both behavioral health care providers and trauma survivors. Trauma-responsive services create opportunities for trauma survivors to rebuild a sense of control and empowerment. Trauma-informed care also necessitates the evaluation of institutional procedures and individual practices in order to prevent re-traumatization. Consumers and trauma survivors should be encouraged to participate in the development, delivery, and evaluation of these services. When behavioral health services are trauma-informed, the delivery of those services is based on an understanding of trauma and an awareness of the impact it can have on settings, services, and populations. It includes approaching trauma with the understanding that every individual's response to trauma is unique and potentially impacted by ecological, contextual, or cultural factors. In May 2012, SAMHSA convened a group of national experts to identify key elements of a trauma-informed approach. These 4 key assumptions are: 1. Realizing the widespread impact of trauma and understanding potential paths for recovery. 2. Recognizing the signs and symptoms of trauma in clients, families, staff, and other involved with the system. 3. Responding by fully integrating knowledge about trauma into policies, procedures, and practices. And 4. Seeking to actively resist re-traumatization. The first step to becoming fully trauma-informed is becoming trauma-aware. To increase our understanding of awareness of trauma, let's define some key terms. So far, we've used the term trauma quite a few times. What is trauma and how is it defined? According to SAMHSA's Treatment Improvement Protocol, or TIP 57, trauma refers to experiences that cause intense physical and psychological stress reactions. It can refer to a single event, multiple events, or a set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or threatening, and has lasting adverse effects on the individual's physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being. There is also another form of trauma called secondary trauma. TIP 57 defines secondary trauma as trauma-related stress reactions and symptoms resulting from the exposure to another individual's traumatic experiences, rather than from direct exposure to a traumatic event. Secondary trauma can occur among behavioral health service providers across all behavioral health settings. Secondary trauma can also occur among professionals who provide services to those who have experienced trauma, such as healthcare providers, peer counselors, first responders, clergy, and intake workers. Trauma-specific treatment services are evidence-based practices that facilitate recovery from trauma. The term trauma-specific services refers to prevention, intervention, or treatment services that address traumatic stress as well as any co-occurring disorders which develop during or after trauma. An example of co-occurring disorders is mental illness and substance abuse. Now that we've become familiar with defining trauma, let's discuss the 6 principles that guide the implementation of trauma-informed care. A trauma-informed approach reflects adherence to the 6 principles rather than a prescribed set of practices or procedures. These principles are meant to be generalized across multiple types of settings. Terminology and application of these principles will, by necessity, be setting or practice specific. The first principle of trauma-informed care is safety. Throughout the organization, staff and the people they serve should feel physically and psychologically safe. The second principle of trauma-informed care is trustworthiness and transparency. Organizational operations and decisions must be conducted with transparency, with the goal of building and maintaining trust among staff, clients, and family members to those receiving services. The third principle of trauma-informed care is peer support and mutual self-help. These are integral to the organizational and service delivery approach and are understood as a key vehicle for building trust, establishing safety, and empowerment. The fourth principle of trauma-informed care is collaboration and mutuality. This principle emphasizes partnering between staff and clients, as well as among organizational staff. This principle recognizes that healing happens in relationships and the meaningful sharing of power and decision-making. The organization recognizes that everyone has a role to play in a trauma-informed approach. The fifth principle of trauma-informed care is empowerment, voice, and choice. Throughout the organization and among the clients served, individuals' strengths must be recognized, built on, and validated. If an individual is encouraged to learn new skills, it is empowering rather than reactionary. The organization aims to strengthen the experience of choice among staff, clients, and family members. Every person's experience is unique and requires an individual approach. The organization must believe in the resilience and ability of individuals, organizations, and communities to heal and promote recovery from trauma. This builds on the positive attributes that clients, staff, and communities have to offer, rather than responding to perceived deficits. The sixth and final principle is recognition of cultural, historical, and gender inequalities. The organization actively moves past cultural stereotypes and biases. Examples include, but are not limited to, refusing to make judgments based on race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, age, or geography. The organization should offer gender-responsive services, respect the healing value of traditional cultural connections, and recognize and address the potential traumatic impact of history. These 6 principles are the benchmark of the trauma-informed model of care, and we always need to refer to these principles when trying to maintain a trauma-informed environment in the workplace. The trauma-informed approach can be implemented in any service setting or organization. Trauma-informed care is critical to improving the quality and efficiency of the services we provide. This video has been brought to you by NAMI San Diego, funded by the County of San Diego Health and Human Services Agency through the Mental Health Services Act. For more information, visit us at namisandiego.org. If you liked the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe for upcoming videos. Thank you, and we hope that helps.